Hello and welcome again to this month's Fun Skills 2019 webinar update. We've packed agenda again this month, as some of the more eagle-eyed among you may have seen that we've now published our draft sample external exams for maths and English reading. However, the main topic for this session will be digital support resources and the changes we're making to our offer alongside the functional skills reforms.
Slight change to the lineup this month, as Catherine is away this week, although the other two of us are here. How has your month been, Paul?
Pretty busy. Lots of visits, lots of spending time with people talking about reforms. I've just come from a conference working with a whole series of NHS practitioners talking about functional reform and skills reform to them and understanding some implications for them. So yeah, pretty busy.
Yeah, it is good to talk to groups of people and get a flavour of how everybody's feeling. This month, we're lucky enough to be joined by Kirsten Train-Ward. She's our digital product manager here at City and Guilds, and she's been busy reviewing the plethora of maths and English resources we already have in a quest to make them a little more coherent and easier to navigate.
I was going to say no pressure there, but welcome to your first Fun Skills webinar. I gather you've listened to a few of them.
I have, and thanks for having me.
And hopefully it won't be too much of a daunting experience for you.
It's the usual drill as far as any questions are concerned, so feel free to post as they come into your head. We can't promise to answer them on here, but we will try if we can. But if not, we'll be adding them to the ever-growing list of frequently asked questions.
It's getting longer and longer.
It is getting longer, yes.
So if you are new to these webinars, please be aware that you can find a lot more information on about the reforms on our dedicated updates page. There's a link here, and it will take you straight there. But do remember that we always send these out a day or so after each webinar, so you will get the slide deck in the next day or so. Another really important tip, and I think we'll probably keep coming back to this, is that if you haven't already done so, please sign up for our email updates. We'll be using the alert system with increased frequency over the next few months as further details about the reforms emerge. The arrow on this slide is pointing you to the spot at the bottom of every City and Guilds web page that takes you through to the email updates page that allows you to sign up.
And it's very grandly called the Preference Centre because, in fact, it gives you the option to sign up for alerts about all sorts of things like funding and policy changes, as well as qualification updates. And here's this month's big reveal. Sound the trumpets. We sent an alert out at the end of last week, which contained more information or background about our progress to date. We've said this before, but it bears repeating. Like all awarding organisations, we're still in the process of liaising with Ofqual while they still carry out their own technical evaluation of draft assessments and other aspects of plans for delivery of the reformed qualifications. So while that's still underway, any sample assessments we publish are draft, and do bear in mind that we will also be adding the entry-level drafts in the coming weeks.
Okay, we're now onto the polls. So let me just, again, if you're used to these webinars, you'll be used to this by now, but I'll just give you the first one, which is just a quick check on how many of these webinars that you have seen so far. So we'll give you a few more minutes to vote. About a third of you voted so far, just over half, 2/3 now. A few more seconds. I was going to bring a countdown clock, wasn't I? We were talking about that last month as a thing that we ought to have at the end of
Yes,
this.
the beginning and the volume.
So I think we'll bring the curtain down on that one. Okay, interesting. So actually just over a quarter of you, it's your first time, so welcome. A couple of you, well, it's about a third again, this is between your second or third. 18% of you absolute stalwarts, you've been tuned in for all of them. So that's That's wonderful to hear, and another sort of 20% sort of heard most of them. Obviously, always worth repeating is that we do have each of the webinars today going back to last August sort of on the website, so you can.
I think we've got both the recordings now and the actual slide decks.
Yeah,
so.
yes, I think we did a little bit of rejigging that to get those on there. Time for another poll now. And again, this is a little bit relates to what Amanda was talking about a second ago. So, were you aware that we've now published the draft assessments? Interesting. So, sorry, neck and neck there, I think, right? God, this is running really, really close at the moment. Do you know? 85% of you voted, so I'll just give it another couple of seconds. Shall we? We'll close it at that point, actually. Would you believe an absolute dead heat, 50-50? So what I'm going to say now is, can the 50% of you who voted yes in the last poll just take part in this one? And the questions this time are, have you A, had a really good look through them, had a quick glance through, not got around to it yet, or you're not even bothered or not interested in looking at them? Okay, we'll give you, given that we're only expecting half of you to vote, I will close this poll quite soon. I think we're near more or less there, aren't we? So let's close that. So well done to 30% of you. You've had a really good look through. Hopefully you've liked what you see. I haven't been too presumptuous there. And again, hopefully it's been good for the 32% of you who've had at least a glance through. Great. I know some more of you will need to have, will be still getting around to having a look at them. I think we would sort of encourage you to do so. Having spent a big chunk of the last webinar saying, don't worry about the assessments, look at the subject content first, that message still absolutely holds, but I think now the assessments are there, they do, particularly with maths, they bring them to life a little bit more in terms of understanding what this is actually what this translates into in reality.
They're certainly useful for getting a flavour of how we'll be asking questions and how various assessment criteria will be approached, which is always quite useful, I think.
Okay, we'll just quickly go back to slowly showing the screen and make sure we've got any view yet, or the view is hopefully that one yet. So we'll move on now.
So now, when the slide changes,
It will eventually. Here we go. Yeah.
Okay, so it's now time to hand over to Kirsten. You're going to talk us through the current and the future shapes of the digital support offer. Is that right? That's in English.
That is correct. Great.
So I will lead on.
So over the last few months, we've been looking at the offer that we currently have around our functional skills, which we have our e-functional skills solution, and we had a maths and English toolkit and various other things on the smart screen. Based on conversations that our digital solution managers have had with our customers, feedback from the people on the ground, and obviously both Amanda and Paul, we've looked to try possibly simplify it and make it work a bit more flexible for various customers. So we will have an e-functional skills solution for the new qualification, and that is aligned to that full learner journey. So it's the initial assessments all the way through, getting the learner ready for that end exam. And then we've taken Smart Screen and made that a little bit easier, because Smart Screen had been layered over time. Where it will just be a Smart Screen's maths and English offer, which is a little bit more generic, but will include things like mapping grids and schemes of work to match the functional skills. Because the tutors a bit more flexibility in how to use those really rich resources.
I think it was always difficult for people to see the difference between the free Smart Screen and the paid for, so that's a really welcome step.
That is actually, certainly times I've been out with presenters talking through this offer, and the fact e-toolkit and e-functional skills sounded quite similar.
Yeah.
Explaining the difference was always, I think, that sometimes
always a challenge.
Yeah.
So can we go to the next slide?
We can. just trying to find it. There we go.
So e-functional skills is the full office. That will take the learners from the initial assessment. The initial assessment in e-functional skills starts at level 1, and then depending on how the learner does in that particular initial assessment, they'll either be given entry level 3 or level 2 or the diagnostics for level 1. So it's trying to make it a bit more bite-sized. You don't have a very long initial assessment to go through to get that right level. So that's one of the things. It's currently in the system. The learner will then be taken into a diagnostics to discover where their gaps are at the level they're working towards. Based on the result of that diagnostics, the system will automatically give the learner resources to cover those gaps or where they feel they might need to, whether it's fractions or maybe it's grammar, depending on what it is. Right? It'll be full of mock tests and sample assessments. The difference with e-functional skills to what we have in Smart Screen is that it's completely learner-driven. So the learner will decide when they want to do things, and they'll have their own to-do list to work through. Yeah, sorry.
So I was just going to say, so will the teacher know how they're progressing?
Yes, so there are reporting suites within e-functional skills. We are looking to develop them and enhance them based on some customer feedback. So there's some new features coming in as part of the reforms. And the tutor could also go, maybe the learner did really well in their fractions, possibly. But the tutor goes, they're kind of on the line. I want to give them additional resources as the part of their own delivery style. They could add that to the learner, but they don't need to.
So can the tutor add their own resources?
Yes, yes, they can. And what we have found is tutors who are very comfortable with the platforms have taken the resources from Smart Screen and added them into the e-functional skills platform. Therefore, the learner has the one place to go and get these resources, and therefore that kind of manages the learner journey. If anyone wanted more details on how different ways centres are approaching using e-functional skills, our digital solution managers, the team that train our centres, have loads of ideas of how different centres have adopted to use the e-functional skills platform.
Oh, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
They're good actually as well, because I know because they work with so many different providers, and they'll have the opportunity to kind of share experiences. I've just got one more question before we move on, which I know is that obviously this product sits on the Hodder Dynamic Learning platform rather than our own systems, but obviously we're working quite closely with colleagues at Hodder to particularly make sure that their understanding of the reforms is aligning with ours. And come this September, where there'll be, if you like, old e-functional skills and new e-functional skills kind of existing alongside each other.
So both products will still exist.
Yeah.
So for the centres who are delivering the current functional skills and therefore using the current product, need those diagnostics and those resources mapped in the correct way, that product will still be there. There will be a brand new product on the Hodder platform for the reforms, and it will be clearly identified these are for the reforms, with the initial assessments mapped to the reforms, because there are slight variations, as we know, and there are a few additional things, resources and gaps we need to fulfill based on what the qualification specifications are asking for.
So it might have a different name, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it will be very clear that the two things are running differently, yeah. What also makes e-functional skills a bit of a unique product, especially if you're delivering sitting guilds functional skills, is that the questions and the content that's built into e-functional skills are mapped and have the same shape and format as the sitting guilds assessments. That makes it a lot easier for the learner. Everything feels a bit more familiar when they get to that end.
They're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's certainly when I've talked to colleagues, and certainly whether it's training providers or colleges about e-functional skills, that kind of joined upness is the thing that they really find useful, because I mean, okay, it's one is about assessment, one's about actually teaching and learning, but to have the
so that's something we're quite passionate about with the e-functional skills product. So if we can go to the next slide about the Smart Screen. So if you're a Sitting Guild Centre, you know Smart Screen. It's our core product really when it comes to content. So what we've done is, with all the data and all the content we already had in Smart Screen across multiple places, we pulled it all together and created a Maths and English package. There will be functional skills mapping, so there will be, if you're delivering functional skills, there will be schemes of work and a mapping grid of where those resources sit. There will be induction video guides for tutors and how they could use those resources. I think we sometimes forget, we throw a bunch of resources in and go, oh, it's amazing. And then everyone goes, oh, I don't know what to use and when. So we try to make it a bit more user-friendly for everyone to kind of make use of. There's lots of e-learning bites, there's lots of worksheets and project stuff that people could use. Again, tutors use what they need to use. There's a few parts that have what we're referring to as maths and English in context. So it's real life examples of how you use fractions or word grammar or writing methods, maybe a bit more important. Some of the things we've included is preparation for assessment. Now we've put it in maths and English, but I think it's a really useful tool across just preparing for doing a test. I mean, they're really helpful little videos that we put together.
Only this morning we were discussing how the speaking and listening support would be useful for people who are doing apprenticeships, preparing for their professional discussions.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's loads of resources here, and instead of just sticking it in a functional skills box that only the functional skills tutors have access to, we're hoping that by opening it up, that tutors who are delivering apprenticeships, technicals, could use some of these pieces as part of their delivery and truly map the maths and English kind of ethos across their entire delivery, which is something I know that both Amanda and Paul are passionate about, and they've got me as passionate about.
So to ask a question, I remember something called the Maths and English e-toolkit. So
yeah.
Where does that sit now?
So the e-toolkit won't exist anymore. Basically, we've taken those resources and we pulled them into the Maths and English offer to make it a little bit simpler for customers, because they didn't know what they were supposed to be buying, and regardless of what they were delivering, it felt like a bit hectic. So we've pulled it all under the one and made it a little bit simpler for everyone to make use of, and then filled the gaps that we need for the reforms.
Yes, it hasn't gone, but it's in one place now rather than several.
Yeah. Those resources.
Lovely e-learning bits and things.
Yeah, great. So what we've done is we've looked at them, we've mapped them to the right levels, to the functional skills, and we have filled in the gaps that need to kind of be filled in. One of them really was around the speaking and listening resources. So a lot of the feedback we've had is that's the part was our weakest part of the offer. So we've added a whole bunch of new resources around speaking and listening.
Brilliant.
Good. So,
so kind of, in our minds, we want a solution that kind of meets your needs. So you just have to click through it. So any functional skills, the initial assessment you can buy separately. So if you just want to use the initial assessment to see what level your learner is working towards, you can do that, and you don't have to buy the full product. And some of our centres find that really useful, especially maybe they're doing a lot more partial delivery, or they're using the diagnostics in a slightly different way. You could then, your learner could go into the full product, e-functional skills, it does that whole learner journey, it's very learner driven, comes with ILPs, there's less for the tutor to probably get involved with as much, besides with the reports. Or you can use their smart screen resources, so the very tutor resources, classroom activities, make it a bit more of a blended learning experience. Some centres use them both together. I think it's whatever works for you and your delivery style is how you would want to use them. So it's worth looking at both and seeing what you want to use and how you want to use it. I think then the next step would be, once your learners have got all that knowledge and all that understanding, and you think they're almost ready to sit that goal test, that's when you'll take them through Open Assess, which Amanda will take you through in a second. And that's more about them getting familiar with the platform, the Evolve platform. So they've done all the learning, they now get to answer those questions in almost on like a very similar screen to with the Evolve tests. And you can obviously mark the results. Then your learners should be ready to sit the Evolve test with a lot more confidence than probably they've ever had before.
Oh, that sounds great.
But our digital stuff doesn't really end there. So that's our digital support tools. But I thought it'd be worth mentioning. Go to the next slide.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep. Got Paul with 2 mouses here.
And then pulling two different mouses or mice.
And we've got something on the Sitting Guild's website called YMaths. We did this in partnership with the National Numeracy Organisation. And I just think they're really useful just to keep reminding people that we have these pages. And it's about why maths is important and relevant in any work environment you're working with. They're really, really handy little videos, and they are hosted by Rachel Island. So if you haven't seen them, they're really worth having a look at.
It's always quite useful to have students talk to students about why maths is important.
Yeah.
These were quite deliberately trying to sort of move away from talking about either functional skills or GCSE and very much just say, look, actually, let's pull that to one side. Let's actually just think about the skills themselves being relevant to your main program, but also your life and your work.
Yeah.
More generally.
So definitely have a look at them on the pages. They are there for you to use. And then the final thing, just to mention, I know a lot of centres do have them, is on the next slide. Sorry, if you happen to be delivering any of the apprenticeships with City Guilds and you're using the apprenticeship training manuals that you can buy through SmartScreen, it's worth noting that there's a Maths and English skills grid part of every apprenticeship training manual. What that does is it lists out all the tasks that you would have in that training manual, as well as opportunities to teach and explore Maths and English, and we've highlighted them for you. So it's a really useful tool for teachers who are doing the apprenticeship stuff to identify where they can actually embed some of the Maths and English across their delivery.
We know that if learners only come to one lesson of Maths and English a week, the chances of them passing their assessments first time are quite small. So the more times they practice, the better. This is a really useful tool.
Yeah, we've had some really good feedback about this. So I just like to, whenever I'm talking about Maths and English, just remind people that there is this lovely little grid. It's relatively simple, but it does exactly what you need to do.
It also ties into the thing Amanda mentioned a minute ago, and I was at the same meeting as her this morning where we were talking about apprenticeships. I think it is something, and I picked this up actually just a session I've just come from, which I was talking to NHS providers. The conversations we've been having in the last couple of years since the move from frameworks to standards. One of the things that I think some have been quite slow to grasp, but something kind of recognising now, is that the Maths and English demand of the apprenticeship itself is becoming an issue for some learners. That could include aspects of their own programme and some of the things that they're being asked to do, but also it's becoming apparent, I think, some forms of endpoint assessment are particularly, they're having to do things like producing reports, reflect on their practice, and take part in interviews and professional discussions. There's actually quite a lot of communication in there, and quite a lot of having to use numbers, and it's also that focus on communication. It's probably no coincidence that customer service happens to be one of the first standards that we did these materials for, and the plan, the intention has been to sort of roll those across all of our on-program kind of manuals and resources, but it obviously is a good example. It was a good example to start with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I mean. I think the next stage is to look at what Open Assess, the wonders of Open Assess.
Roll on to the next slide.
Right, so yet another blast on the trumpets. So I've been at City Guilds for nearly 3 years now, and throughout that time we've been talking about Open Assess, and I'm delighted to say that it's almost ready to go.
Yes, it's a bit I've been talking about Open Assess probably for even longer, actually, and it's light at the end of the tunnel. It really is going to be actually here with us in the next few weeks. Basically, I mean, sort of detailed description here, but in very broad terms, what it is effectively a parallel version of the Evolve system, the on-screen testing platform that we use. Some of you may know that system's its formal title is Secure Assess. Open Assess sort of still evidently is a sort of, I feel like, an open version of that. So it behaves in many respects the same as the actual live Evolve system, but without all of the booking, scheduling, and the security paraphernalia. We're going to be using it to host all of our sample functional skills exams. So instead of them just sitting on our website, disappearing as soon as you click to close them, which I know is incredibly frustrating, they were stored in the cloud, and you'll be able to log in afterwards, see your learners' responses, and a record of every practice test that they attempt.
It's worth saying that it won't mark the papers for you. Even the live tests have to be marked by real people. But being able to access learners' responses after the event means at least you can judge for yourself how ready they might be for a live test. And you could, in fact, use it as an example of a perfect test if you were to complete a test yourself as an assessor and share your responses with the learner. It's a really good way to show the learner the maximum way to score the marks needed to pass their assessment. So
the next step really is the rollout. As we're saying, we're on track for that to happen just before Easter. So the intention is you'll be able to use it with the current functional skills assessments this summer. We'll also be making the reformed qualification sample assessments available through Open Assess, but that won't happen just yet. We obviously have to complete that process of getting those through the technical evaluation that we were talking about earlier. So we're actually planning to make those available through Open Assess from this September when the new qualifications actually go live. But in the meantime, if you are wanting to familiarise with the current, the new functional skills assessments, there are PDF versions that you'll be able to obviously look at and see in the meantime.
So again, it's really important that you're signed up for our email alerts so that we can let you know as soon as Open Assess becomes available. Needless to say, we'll be providing webinars and briefing guides to help you use the system, although it's pretty straightforward, particularly if you're already used to Evolve. And it'll also be on the agenda at our Fun Skills 2019 launch events. And this is the other big reveal for this month.
3 now, isn't it?
Yeah, almost overcome.
Yeah.
We're about to announce the dates of our initial calendar of Fun Skills 2019 launch events. Each of these dates will comprise a full day's workshop looking at detail at the subject content and the sample assessments across both maths and English. These sessions will be free of charge, but we do expect them to get booked up pretty quickly. So what we're showing you today is the first draft of the dates that will be available.
And here it is. As I said, this is our initial sort of calendar. We will be adding to these, I'm sure, and I know also the intention is to run these as well as running obviously an initial run of these before the summer to carry on kind of after the summer, because I know certainly once the new qualifications start to come in and actually start working actively with them, there'll be other questions and sort of things that come into your mind. Just on a sort of practical level, we're in the process of setting these dates up through our event calendar system, so it will very soon be possible to start booking for these through Eventbrite. So do keep checking the functional skills updates page or the events calendar. And again, this is another good reason to sign up for the alerts if you haven't already done so, because again, we'll use that to sort of prompt once they are available.
So we're going to store the questions that you've been very kindly sending during this webinar and the last, and we've been developing a set of frequently asked questions to go on the website. There are a couple of questions that people asked in the last event that we're just refining the answers to, and then we hope to make the FAQs available on the website after that. In the meantime, we're looking for feedback, so once you've had a chance to have a look at those assessments, please feel free to give us feedback to fsreform@cityandguilds.com as we're collating all of that and feeding it into the process.
It is worth saying just on that is that obviously because what we've published is draft, there are certain things we can't change at this stage because they'll form part of what we eventually agree on. But obviously we're welcoming any feedback, and actually feedback on the visual presentation as well is helpful as well as on the content. Just to sort of wrap up, again, obviously normal pattern. These webinars are due to continue with dates in the diary right through up to the summer. I think we're actually looking at continuing this beyond.
I think, and this is something we'd like feedback on. We would like to actually have this month as a monthly webinar, sort of continuing into next year, with the opportunity for you to feed in what you would like us to talk about. So we are intending to keep these going, I think, aren't we?
Absolutely. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier on, but there are recordings of every session to date. The one exception to that is the special phonics webinar that we did in December. And that was just simply because it was replicating content that the ETF were running anyway. So if you wanted to sort of catch up on the content of that, the ETF has got that available. But obviously our webinars otherwise, they are both the actual recording and the slides are available from the updates page. We mentioned, I think Amanda mentioned the FAQs a second ago. We are close to getting those into a position where they are going to be sort of uploaded onto the update, again onto the functional skills updates page. So that's coming very soon. And the other thing that I've been mentioning for months, but is finally kind of nearing nearing being ready for launch is our Maths and English blog, which now we're looking at putting that live kind of just after Easter, just as the launch events are starting to kick off. That will not just simply focus on functional skills reforms, it's trying to sort of, I suppose, intervene more generally in the wider debate about Maths and English and share some thoughts, not necessarily the corporate line on things or formal sitting view, but to share a few ideas, which just leads us on to the next webinar. We're back in 4 weeks' time? It will be 4 weeks' time, yeah, 3rd of April, focusing on entry level next month.
And we hope to be in a position to upload our draft entry level assessments very shortly as well. So it just remains to say thank you for tuning in. That's not an old-fashioned way of saying it. For more information about our Functional Skills Reform Programme, please visit cityandguilds.com/maths and English, and you can then follow the links to functional skills updates. There are now 2 links. There's one to an updates page, and then there's one under the number of our new qualification suite, which is 4748, which is our most recent announcement.
Oh, it's that page has now been built, hasn't it, which we were talking about last month. And again, don't forget the FS Reform email address. Anything comes into your head related to the functional skills reforms, by all means use that to get in touch. And again, don't forget the Fun Skills 2019 hashtag if you're using any form of social media. We're using it. We're seeing 1 or 2 other people starting to use that as well as ourselves as a way of kind of trade reforms. I think we'll trade that as flattery.
Yes, leading the way.
Yeah, leading the way. Yeah.
So I think what we'll do now is we'll turn the microphone off but leave the webinar running for another 5 minutes or so to give people time to type their questions in. But thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you next month.
And thank you also, Kirsten, for joining us. Hopefully that wasn't too traumatic.
It was delightful. I loved it. You can have me anytime.
Great. We may well invite you back at some point in that case. Okay, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next month.